Hello and welcome to another episode of the Aloe and Ace podcast. I am the allosexual Skylar.
And I'm the asexual Jessie.
Jessie.
Skylar.
How are you?
I always feel like that's so loaded now, honestly, because I'm stepping into this new way of just actually being honest if someone asks me that, because everyone says, good, but really, no.
It's true. I usually tell people at work, they're like, how are you? And I'm like, living the dream. Even nightmares are dreams.
That sounds terrible.
Well, it just means either way, I'm living the dream, whether it's a nightmare or it's not.
So you can just let them guess.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Sure.
I have paused so many times lately when someone has asked me that. I'm like, things are interesting. It's a journey. That's what I've been saying.
All right. So to start off every episode, if this is your first time tuning in, this is number 7. I would recommend starting at number 1 because you're going to get the history of everything, basically.
All of it.
The other thing that we like to say is that trigger warnings. This podcast is a sexuality podcast where we discuss asexuality. We can talk about sex. We can talk about SA. We can talk about self-harm, different aspects. So if you're listening and you start to get a little uncomfy with your mental health, we recommend taking a break, resetting, and continue if you want to.
Yes, and a friendly reminder that Skylar and I are not professionals. We are in a relationship that has a lot of interesting journeys to be taken, and we've experienced a bunch of stuff, and we're sharing that with you all.
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of life experience with different things, and so I think that can be handy and helpful to people. So if you find parts of our podcast helpful, that's great. If you don't, that's also great.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
There's plenty of forums and other websites and therapists and everyone else that you can also talk to.
Mm-hmm. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone that's messaged us over the last week or so. Thank you so much for all the messages. We've had a couple of videos on TikTok get some attention, which was wonderful, and also not wonderful at the same time because, interesting comments can happen.
Yeah, and we are on most socials, so if you just search out Aloe and Ace or Aloe and Ace podcast, you will be sure to find us. If you want to email us, our email address is aloeandacepodcast@gmail.com. And also, please rate and leave us a review on Apple and Spotify and wherever else you're listening.
That would be wonderful, and we would definitely appreciate it.
I always have to say that word very clearly.
Rate.
Rate with a T.
I wondered why you said it like that. I'm over here just giving you the stink eye. What is he doing? Okay,
yes,
it makes sense now.
It's the same with trying to say 6th.
I don't even think you should say that.
Yeah, the 6th episode.
6th.
Yeah.
Okay, well, wow.
All right, so speaking of the episode number 6, we had a worksheet, and we talked about starting over. This next episode, episode 7, it kind of piggybacks episode 6 in the sense that if you're having a hard time with starting over, this is maybe a follow-up episode to see why you might want to or not want to start over.
Right. And this episode might feel a bit heavy. So we're going to just put that disclaimer out there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in business, there's a book out there called Start With Why. And it's by Simon Sinek. And I had to read this for work one time, but essentially the initial thought of the book is, with starting a business, what is your why? If your why is money, then chances are your business is going to fail because you're not going to be passionate or find joy in what you do because you're just going to be about money and that's it. So the idea is start with why, find out what the joy is, the happiness, and then figure out how to make money with that joy and passion.
Makes sense.
So I thought, how do you turn that into marriage? What is the start with why in marriage? If your reason for being, well, not marriage, in any relationship, if your why for being in a relationship is sex, then chances are you're not going to be happy or fulfilled, because even in an aloe relationship, there's going to be ups and downs when it comes to libido and sex. People get busy, kids.
What if both people have sex as their number one priority? Do you still think that they're at risk?
Of course, because chances are someone is going to have a lower libido at some point.
I just feel like we've talked about that between us.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've necessarily gone into it in the podcast, but you know, you and I have both said, I guess if someone has their number one priority as sex and they find somebody else that's like that, then maybe it could work out. But when you really break it down and think about it, we are made up of so many other things. We put sex on this pedestal, right? But then when you break it all down, that breaks down as well.
At some
Holy crap.
At some point, someone's not going to be happy with the frequency, amount, etc. So,
but also the other things, if you're number 2, number 3, number 4 priority, you know, if you just only focus on that, I mean, there's so much more life going on outside of that 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Sorry.
What am I doing with the other 9? That's an aloe joke anyway. All the asexuals are rolling their eyes.
Oh, I am.
All right. So when it comes to your relationship, we want you to think about why. Why are you with this person? And you should have some reasons after filling out the worksheet last podcast episode, if
or
you did it.
Or thinking of it.
Or, yeah, thinking about it. And if you're having trouble understanding that, basically what we want you to do is I want you to, and this is where it's going to get heavy. I want you to imagine that you are trying to call your partner and they're not answering. And then all of a sudden you get a knock at your front door, or you get a phone call from someone else and they say, I am sorry to tell you this, but your partner was in a car accident and they died.
They didn't make it.
They didn't make it. We tried everything that we could and they didn't make it. What regrets would you have, if any?
What would your first thoughts be?
Like, if you have all this resentment and these hurt feelings and these hard feelings and these disappointments in your relationship, what would those matter? Would you regret having those? Would you, if you could rewind the clock, would you find a way to get rid of those?
And if you wouldn't, the thing is this isn't supposed to be like they could die tomorrow,
Yeah,
and if you're miserable, well, you're just going to feel bad. No,
this isn't a guilt trip.
No,
This is a.
It could go both ways. It could be that's an interesting thought for you to sift through, because you're like thinking, obviously it's terrible if anyone doesn't make it in that sense. But if you find yourself feeling a bit detached from it, that's also an interesting path to have.
I think that we tend to feel like everyone is going to live to be some ripe old age.
Yeah, like 80.
And so it's easy to hold on to resentment for longer than we probably should, because we think nothing bad will happen tomorrow. And what kind of stemmed this off in the first place was I was watching this TikTok, and unfortunately I don't have the person who did this TikTok, so it's not that I'm wanting to steal this information. But They were in their car and they were talking about how their wife just had a baby. There was a lot of tension at home. There was a lack of connection. There was a fight that happened. So neither of them were talking to each other. And he went to work and he was talking to his coworker about how he didn't even say goodbye to his wife when he left, and he's upset. And he was feeling bad about that, and his coworker, was talking to him through it. And he told his coworker, well, as soon as I get home today, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to make it up to my wife. And his coworker said, well, who said that's going to happen? And he's like, well, what do you mean? That's my plan. My plan is I'm going to get home. I'm going to do all those things. And the coworker said, who said you're going to make it home today?
That is so eerie.
And he went, like, he started crying, and he's like, I'm going to go call my wife right now. And so he recorded this TikTok afterward because he's like, these are all the things I'm feeling. And the amount of comments that were in that TikTok that said, my husband didn't make it home from work. My brother didn't make it home from work. My coworker didn't make it home from work. My cousin didn't make it home from work. Like hundreds of comments like that. And so you never know when your time is not going to be here anymore. And we actually have two personal experiences to share with this. There was a day I was coming home and I get this phone call from my wife, and she is frantic. She is bawling. I can't even understand what she's saying. And this is what she told me.
That's my cue.
That's your cue.
Oh, okay. I'm actually getting like a little tear in my eye by thinking about this. It's been a bit since I had to really mull this one over. So 3 years ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, actually, I was about to log off of work and I start getting a phone call from my aunt. And she's a talker, guys. So I looked at my phone and I just had this one last little bit of work to do. And I was like, do I answer this? I let it ring for a minute and then I decide to answer it. And when I answer it, she is just freaking out. She's just saying, Jesse, your dad. I'm like, what's going on? What? She's just freaking out and saying that he had cardiac arrest and the ambulance just came and got him. And I'm just it was the shock of my life. I think it was the most shocking thing of my life. Next to the other thing that we're going to talk about, I was floored because my dad is, at the time, he was 56. He has run almost 30 marathons. He's tall, he's slender. He stays very active. And to find out that he had dropped dead.
Just mowing the lawn.
Yep, mowing the lawn, just collapsed. It wasn't, he had cardiac arrest and then he had a heart attack following the cardiac arrest. And the next door neighbor happened to be checking her barbecuer at the exact same time that he dropped. She had forgot something. She wasn't cooking anything. She went out because she forgot something there. And she saw him collapse and she immediately started calling for her brother. She said, oh my gosh, he's down, go help him. And the next door neighbor ran over and he knew that my dad was just pretty much dead. He knew he'd have to do CPR. And he's never had to do CPR. And he himself is 60 years old and kind of a lot smaller than my dad. So he just starts doing CPR. They call the ambulances. Everything's just so crazy. My dad's blue. I mean, they had to resuscitate him I think 5 different times. They had to resuscitate him. The paramedics got there. They had to resuscitate him on the ground. Then they had to resuscitate him again in the ambulance. And then right when they got to the hospital, and then they took him to the cath lab to see what the heck was going on. And they thought he was stable. And by this point, all of my siblings had started to arrive at the hospital. And it was crazy. It was shocking. And it came out of nowhere, and we didn't know what to do.
And first we went to the wrong hospital, and we couldn't find him because they didn't have his name.
We went to the wrong hospital because we went to the hospital right by his house, and I went into the hospital, the emergency room, and I was so frantic, and I said, my dad's here. I'm just sobbing. And I'm like, his name's this. And they're like, there's no one here by that name. I'm like, yes, he is. And I am just freaking out. And then I get a call from my sister, I think, and she says, Jesse, he's at this one. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I didn't say this before, but my dad and I are very close. My parents separated when I was 12 years old, and I was pretty much the only child out of 7 that chose to go with my dad. The only one. And so I have a very close bond with my dad. It's very special, and we are just really close. So we get to the hospital, and they think that he's stable, and they're about to call us up there to see him. Nope, he crashes again. And so then he's in a coma, and they're having us say goodbye to him. Like, there's a picture of us standing around his bed. And
this was during the later half of COVID times, and so they would only allow 2 people in, period.
Unless it was
time to say goodbye, then they allow everyone up there.
And that's exactly what happened.
All around.
Yep, we were all around, and it's the picture is so eerie because he's just got all these tubes hooked up to him, and I was in absolute shock, huh? Yeah. I couldn't speak. Like I was a zombie. Like I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I was a wreck. I was traumatized by it. Anyway, he ended up living. He came out of his coma, I think 5 days later on his 57th birthday.
He ended up living with us for 3 months so that we could make him eat right and take care of him.
Yep. And I was so scared. I was so scared all the time that something was going to happen. He had to wear this life vest for quite a while where it would shock him because he could just die at any moment. He could just collapse. And he had to take all these medications suddenly. He didn't take any, and now he had to take like 8. And I was just in mass chaos in my head. And
you still have PTSD from it 3 years later.
I do.
Anytime there's a phone call or he doesn't answer or whatever, you're like, what's going on?
Yep. Anytime I hear, I ask him something on the phone and I hear a weird noise and then silence, I think he's like dropped dead. And I have talked about this with the therapist. I just want to make it clear. It did take me a long time to do that, but I've been working through it. So here's where we're going with this. There's actually a couple things to touch on here. One is surprising in my head that I didn't think of until now, but it makes it really hard for me to approach situations with him because I feel this scared feeling that I can't get too mad at him. What if he's dead tomorrow? You know? Or if I do get mad at him, I have this soft spot now. And I don't know, like, I think that that's a good thing to a degree. Wouldn't you say it's a good thing? It makes me kind of be a bit more empathetic and be aware.
I think it's a catch-22 because you don't want to allow his ignorance, like...
We'll call it ignorance.
Yeah, you don't want his ignorance to be basically... forgivable.
We don't want to enable him to be so ignorant constantly.
But at the same time, if you get upset with him for his ignorance, then you could be regretting that if something happened.
Well, but there's also this thought of he could be dead right now.
Yeah.
He was likely to be dead right now. What am I doing?
So who am I to be upset with him? Because I should be so grateful for the time I have with him now.
Yes. And you know what else with this? And I don't know if this is kind of morbid or weird, but obviously I didn't know I was asexual through all of that because I just came out 10 months ago. But it actually made it even harder to distinguish the fact that I did not experience intimacy in the same way as everyone else, because it just offered another reason to say, I'm too stressed. I'm too emotionally traumatized to do anything like that. You think sex is on my mind? Are you crazy? No, like I'm full force in this crazy healing process with my dad being at the house, you know? So like at any given moment, it was work is too stressful, my religion stuff. And now I had this other thing. I don't even felt like that was why.
I don't even think I was like thinking about it. I was just like, I'm not mentioning nothing.
Right. So
I think when you even wanted to, I'm like, are you sure?
It took me a long time though.
Yeah.
Do you remember? It was months. I think it was months. Yeah. And so it's just going through that is really interesting. And it's not like we want to sit here and traumatize you by thinking about your spouse dying or something, but it is a really powerful thought of...
I mean, we don't, but we do.
What would be left over here? What thoughts would be left over? What would you be missing so badly about them? And what would you not be missing, possibly?
And that brings us to the next thing, where I've always had this fear of anesthesia, if that's how you say it.
Now you're making me question it. Anesthesia?
Anesthesia?
Why are we saying that weird?
I don't know. You understand what we're saying. When someone has to get surgery and be put under, because when I think back at my high school days, I had a teacher whose wife went in for liposuction, I think it was, and she did not come out. And I just thought about like how hard that would be for any partner, but it's like, did he contribute to her feeling like she needed to get it?
Mm-hmm.
Was she getting it for him? Like, what was the reason for it? And like, did he have regrets the rest of his life being like, I wish she never would have done this? And so I'll let Jessie talk about her reasons for her surgery. Mm-hmm. And the fears I had, and then me letting go of those fears.
Right.
Before the surgery happened.
Right. So the whole surgery thing, it's interesting because it ties in both with my asexuality and with the topic that we're discussing. And I think it's good to talk about this because there was almost no resources for me to look at as far as me mentally wanting this surgery. So I was a very large-chested woman. I mean, for me, for my body.
For your body type.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is going to mean anything to anyone, but I was around a 36 FG at times. And always above, a double D. So they were heavy. And I was very sick of carrying them around. They caused me a ton of pain in my back, in my neck, my posture. I mean, the whole thing. We all know that they can cause this. But the other side of this was I had used my boobs to sexualize myself for as long as I can remember. I don't, as long as I had them. I knew that they were coveted boobs, I guess. Maybe I should say breasts. No, that's too essy.
No, that's...
So it's more natural for me to say boobs, let's be honest. So I had put so much of my worth in being a sexually sought out person And I had put so much of my worth in having these lovely boobs that everyone just thought were so big and amazing. And it's interesting because I covered up a lot. I hardly ever showed anything, but it still got attention. They still got all the attention. They still got all the comments. And I would definitely use it in my favor. Like, this is what I have going for me. I might not be happy with my ass, but my boobs, they are glorious according to everybody. So when I came out as asexual and figured that out, it all kind of broke down for me. And it was very hard because I realized just how much I was using my boobs to sexualize myself. So not only did I have all this actual physical pain, but I had mental pain too. I felt so...
You were becoming more aware of the discomfort you had with being sexualized by everybody else.
Yes, but also what I was putting myself through with it. How I was doing it to myself.
Utilizing them for your own, sexualization.
Right, exactly. Well. And so it got to a point where I was like, I feel so uncomfortable in my body. I feel like these are foreign almost, as big as they are. They don't feel natural on me. I want them gone. And so I started the journey of figuring out if I could have insurance pay for it and whatever. And while I was going through this, I tried looking up other asexual experiences where other people had felt this way as well about large boobs. Like it made them feel uncomfortable because of the sexualization that either they put themselves through or that others have put them through their whole lives since puberty. And I couldn't find anything. And I even tried posting about it in one of the support groups on Facebook, and they denied my post. And so I felt like, gosh, I'm kind of scared. Like, what if this really warps what if it really gives me a really bad case of body dysmorphia because I'm so used to having them like this? I wasn't hearing anybody else's experiences as far as the mental asexual aspect goes. There were plenty of women that talked about the instant relief physically that they had.
Or even in like the, non-binary or other people in the like transgender community who, want top surgery, basically.
Yeah. I just couldn't find any resources that I felt I really connected with and related to. But what I did know is that they felt so unnatural to me. They didn't feel the way they should be. And I couldn't believe the amount of people that were so worried about me going as small as I wanted to go.
Like almost as if like you're not going to be feminine anymore.
Yeah. But then again, people kind of have interesting feelings around my looks sometimes anyway, because there are times when I am very androgynous. And so I think almost people are thinking I'm asexual now, and now I want to look like a more masculine presenting, more mask presenting or whatever, which just isn't the case. I just dress however I want to, and sometimes I look quite androgynous. So,
and I was always like, this is your body. You don't need to ask me a single thing.
Oh my gosh. And even to touch on that, I could not believe the amount of people that are like, how does Skylar feel about that? He'll get used to the new ones.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
It was crazy, guys. It was absolutely bananas. It was just, I couldn't believe the comments. And with the size too, because I started to realize that I wanted to have a 36A. And people are like, an A? An A? You want an A? And I'm like, yeah. So the whole process of going down that road of looking into it was kind of crazy.
Yeah. And so initially we went to a plastic surgeon because they're like, insurance isn't going to pay for it unless you get like a massive amount. Like we might be scraping bone.
Like you're going to be completely flat. for insurance to cover it.
And we can't guarantee that it's going to look good afterward because we have to like scrape it.
Take the right amount.
So we were looking at the plastic surgeon because it was a cash option. And then...
Oh, you mean we were looking at a plastic surgeon that had their own office. Yeah. It wasn't like at a hospital.
Because when you had called around, I think the first time it was like, it's hard for insurance to cover it.
Yeah.
So we actually put down a deposit. We had a date scheduled. And then your sister recommended another place.
Yes. My sister recommended a plastic surgeon through the University of Utah hospital. And so I started pursuing that just to see.
And that's when they were stapling in the idea of, like insurance, it's going to be hard. It's not, we're not likely to get it covered. So here is our cash option, which was actually cheaper than the first place.
By a long shot. I think it was like $6,000 cheaper.
Yeah.
So it was a huge difference. So I was like, well, this is the path I need to take. I should go through the hospital. It's way less. I feel way more confident with this doctor, especially because my sister's recommending this doctor as well. And this doctor specializes in chest reconstruction.
I mean, she's done it for over 20 years.
Yes.
And so we felt really good about it, and we were going to be going on a cruise soon. So we're like, hey, if anything opens up, let us know and we'll be right in there. And something did open up.
Something opened up like 10 days later. It was crazy.
It was like, oh my gosh, okay, we're doing this.
We're doing this. I want this done now. I was so excited.
And so I had this fear again, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do a Google search, and I could not find any stories of anyone dying where it wasn't from like an infection or something like went real wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no like, there's a 10% chance, like nothing. And so I was like, all right, we're good.
Well, at first you didn't think that they were going to put me under.
Well, so the first place said, we'll put you in twilight. And so you won't be under. And then the second place is like, no, we put you under, but we've never had any issues. And I was like, cool. So my fear was gone.
Yeah.
And I was at work about 15 minutes away. And so I dropped you off. I went and I was doing some work, and the doctor gave me a call and said, all right, the surgery went fantastic. We were basically just shooting the shit of like, what to look for, how to do this or that. Like it was just like nonchalant, just, all right, yeah. So I'm going to head down there. She's like, it'll take about 40 minutes for them to do the wake up process and go through all that. So you can drive there in 15 minutes, get in line, get her meds at the pharmacy. And then by the time you get up to the lobby, you should only wait like 10 minutes, and then we'll take you back and everything will be good. And I was like, cool, heading there now.
So I start waking up and there's doctors all around me. And the nurses. And I think I was just like, are they gone? I was pretty excited about that. And they said, Jessie, we have something to tell you. We had to shock you. And I just started having a panic attack. And as they were telling me this, Skylar is coming back to see me and has no idea that this has happened.
So I get to the lobby after getting her meds, and I was sitting there for probably another 40 minutes. And I think they're bored or something wasn't working right. So there was, and the lady's like, has anyone come and talked to you yet? And I'm like, no. And they kind of like gave me this look.
Oh, the look.
And they're like, okay, 1 minute. And then they're like, all right, come back here. And I get to Jesse's bedside, and the anesthesiologist is standing there, and she's just like bawling.
Yes, I was sobbing out. I was like out of control sobbing to the point where they were like, you need to calm down. You need to calm down, because I look, so they told me that they had to shock me to bring me back to life, pretty much, to stabilize me. And I look down and I have this life vest on, just like my dad had to wear. And I was instantly just trigger city, baby. Like I lost it. I couldn't believe I was sitting there with this life vest on. And so they started to tell both of us at that point a little bit more detail. They said, when we were trying to extubate you, so take the breathing tube out, your heart rate jumped up to 180 or around 180, and your blood pressure was 60/20, which is pretty much nothing. Like, that's scary.
And the blood pressure is what is pumping the good blood and the oxygen to the extremities. And so they said that in those situations, you have about a 7 to 10 minute window before brain damage and death can happen, because your brain is not getting oxygenated blood.
Right. And so I guess when they extubated me and all that happened and my blood pressure was 60/20, I was actually coherent. And I said, am I dreaming? And I remember saying, am I dreaming? And they were like, what the hell? How is she even speaking right now at 60/20? And so they quickly put an emergency IV into my other hand.
With a larger needle.
Yes, with a larger needle.
And then just pumped her full of Valium.
Well, no. First, they tried the medicine to stabilize me. It didn't budge my numbers. And then they tried again like 5 minutes later, and it didn't budge anything. And so now we're getting into that 7 to 10 minute realm. And they're like, we need to knock her out right now and shock her, because this is bad. This is really bad. And so that's what they did. They knocked me out with whatever drugs they used, and they shocked me. And then I woke up and they told me all the things that had happened, and they were so confused. The anesthesiologist was like, he came in probably 4 or 5 different times after that. He was just so confused.
Everyone was so surprised.
We were trying to think of anything possible that could have caused this to happen, and still to this day, we have no idea why it happened.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to wear a heart monitor and all these things, get tests, and I was so scared to go to sleep. I was so scared to go to sleep for several nights. I was like, I'm just going to die in my sleep. I'm going to die in my sleep.
Went and saw a cardiologist, got an EKG, got an echo.
And Skylar, I feel like you were in shock. Like, it didn't hit you for like a week that, whoa, I could have been driving home by myself.
Yeah. I mean, these are second marriages. And so with like stepchildren, you instantly have 0 parental rights.
They instantly don't live in this house anymore.
They instantly are no longer my stepchildren. They are no longer my kids' step-siblings.
I mean, by law.
By law.
They could still call each other that if they wanted, but
like, everything changes. And I just thought about, like, I almost went home by myself without my best friend, without the love of my life. And what the hell would I have done? And so we talk about this because, we don't want you to just think like everyone around you is going to die, but we want you to think about why you're with the person you're with. And if something like this happened, or if a car accident happened, I mean, I've been in the last 11 years at my job, I think I've been in 3 car accidents. And I've seen car accidents. And so it's like, you never know. And we know for sure that we have this one life to live.
Right.
Depending on what you believe the hereafter holds for you, that's great. And that's great to hope for those things. And you can even say that you know it if you want to, but we know for a fact that you have this life. And so if you're going to live with resentment and disappointment, entitlement, betraying, anger, adultery, whatever you're doing
that has is having a negative impact on you or your partner, in a way that's taking so much of your energy that you really, is it worth that? First of all, is it worth it to be doing that? To be experiencing it or causing it?
Yep.
Is it worth it? And if it's not worth it, then you got choices to make.
Yeah, either fix it and get over that fact and figure out, again, starting with the why, starting with that worksheet. Why am I with you? Why did I fall in love with you in the first place X amount of years ago?
And this could be a beautiful thing. That's the thing. And this can be scary because it could be the most beautiful thing. You're like, wow, oh my heck, I haven't thought of all these different things in so long. But on the flip side, it could be like, wow, I can't do this anymore.
And we never, I don't want to say never, because there are certainly situations where we would say you shouldn't be married.
Well, yes.
But in
a relationship.
In a regular relationship where you're just having a hard time or there's like difficulties in the relationship, we're never going to suggest divorce or splitting up as the first option.
No, we really feel strongly that you should do what you can if you can make it work. But
we're also both in second marriages, so we've had to make those decisions before.
Right. And the thing is mental abuse and emotional abuse are very, very real. And if that's what's happening in your relationship, it either needs to stop or it is not safe to be doing that any longer.
And this can be for the allo or the ace.
Yeah.
In this case, if as an allosexual, your partner's asexuality is putting a lot of negative feelings and stress and issues in your life, then it might be best to not be in that relationship. Or as an asexual, if your allo partner is putting pressure and guilt and other things that are causing mental health issues to you, it might not be good to stay in that relationship.
Yeah. I've been throwing this thing out in my own therapy sessions where my fear, like we've talked about, isn't the right now. My fear is that Skylar in 5 years from now could be like, I can't do this anymore. And so what I've been having to do, or what I think is healthy to do for me, is to look at what would I do? How would I handle that if Skylar did come to me? What's the best way I could handle that? And when you break it down, if Skylar was coming to me and saying this, personally and honestly, I wouldn't want to be with him anymore then in that case. Because it's not right any longer. And I would have to learn to celebrate what we've had. But I'd have to also know that I need to move forward and I'm still me and I still can rely on the love I have for myself in this life, and it doesn't hinge completely on somebody else loving me. And so, and that's not to say, like, that's easy to say right here in my bed with Skylar next to me, right? And if that happened, I'm sure that there would be some real hard times, okay? But I'm trying to prepare my brain because guess what? We're human. We're all human. And
it doesn't help.
It's unpredictable.
It doesn't help that there is post after post of my boyfriend, girlfriend of 5 years, of X amount of years just broke up with me because they finally couldn't take it anymore.
No. And like, that's the reality is, unfortunately, the statistics, society tells me there is no way in hell that Skylar is actually agreeing for life that he could go the rest of his life without having sex. Don't believe him. That's crazy. And so it's really hard. I have to put so much trust into what Skylar's saying.
And I'm like, don't think about 5 years from now. How am I acting today? Like, let's look at my actions now.
Right. So here's the thing. I think that you can go too far in planning for a breakup. Like, I need to prepare myself because this is exactly and definitely going to happen. I think you can go too far down that line. But I do think that it's healthy to a degree to know that you will be okay. That there is a reality there where you have to accept it, but you have to look at it like, this is something to celebrate. This isn't a failure. This is all the things I got from this relationship. And now that time has ended and it's time for us to move on because it is no longer compatible. But all in the same way, if you really, truly love your partner and they love you, I feel like you can work it out.
100%.
Yeah. You have to be in a loving, caring, curious mindset, but it can happen.
And I was messaging a good friend today who actually just started listening to this podcast, and I told him that the love I have for Jesse is way more than essentially the love I would ever have for sex. Like, I don't care if I ever had sex again as long as I can be with Jessie, because she's my best friend. She is everything. And so that little aspect of the relationship doesn't outweigh the rest of the relationship I have with her.
I wonder who would put bets on us.
I don't know, because everybody that we talk to is like, if you guys can't work, then nobody can.
That's it. Nobody can.
Literally above their own marriages.
Babe, are you tooting our own horn?
I am tooting our own horn.
Don't make everyone barf.
But it's true. People see the way that we are together. And part of that is because of, and we've talked about this in, I think, episode 3 and 4. And
there's going to come a time when you can't refer to the episodes, just so you know.
But when we talk about like people being like, you guys are having loads of sex because they just see how good we are together. They see our relationship, that it was such a shock to them.
But what does that come down to, Skylar? What do you think that comes down to? Why do you think our relationship is so good? What do you think a key element is? What is it? Say what I want you to say. Come on. Is he going to get it right?
The key element, I think, is being able to be who we are 100%.
That's not what I was going to say.
And communication.
Oh, there it is. Yes, communication is everything.
Those go hand in hand.
Yes, they do.
But
how much communication do you think is missing from relationships?
A lot.
And would you say that we verge on almost over communicating?
Probably.
Probably.
Well, but we talk about like we are with each other essentially 24/7. What was that?
I'm scoffing at it.
But it's not that I'm trying to toot our own horn per se.
Is it more like this is working?
This
has worked.
It's more so that we've already discussed our previous relationships and the toxicities and
the situations we put ourselves in.
And the situations that we put ourselves in, and that we started over with each other in the sense of like, I said, I'm not putting my best self forward. I'm going to fart in front of you. I'm going to be me, because the core of who I was not good enough in my previous relationship. And so I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not, because I need you to love me for exactly who I am.
Yep, that's the only way it's going to work. I always love the fact that when you're talking about this, it always comes down to the I'm going to fart in front of you.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's like the best way to put it out there that you're not putting your best self forward because you're farting in front of somebody.
We know that there are couples that have been married for 20 years that have never farted in front of each other.
Actually, reach out to us and let us know if you refuse to poop or fart or pee in front of your partner. Maybe we're just nasty.
You're nasty.
You're nasty.
I refuse to make eye contact in the bathroom
Oh my gosh.
in certain aspects. But what this all boils down to is filling out the worksheet together. And if that's still not enough, then find the why.
We had talked about maybe asking everyone listening to rewrite some vows for their partner. And then I got really morbid and I said, maybe we should ask them to write the eulogy that they would give at their partner's funeral. Because guess what? At a funeral, you sit there and you name all of the most amazing things about your partner. It really... unless there's some pretty bad family drama, you usually hear only the good things at funerals and all the best parts of a person. So it's like, what are the best parts of your partner? And are those best parts of your partner what you would like in a relationship and what feeds you and what makes you a better person yourself? Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. And I think for the most part, I want to believe that people are with people who are good people.
Wait, say that again?
People are with people who are good people.
Okay.
So I believe that people can change the minor bad parts of themselves.
You believe that they can evolve if they're willing to have the introspection.
And I think if you can get over the nuances of being in an asexual relationship where your partner doesn't desire you sexually, or at least doesn't look at you with sexual attraction, potentially. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they're demisexual, that's going to be a bit different.
Or if they fall under another micro label under the umbrella, yes.
Gray sexual. But if you can accept that your partner isn't sexually attracted to you, and if you filled out the worksheet and you found the other ways in which your partner desires you and is attracted to you intellectually, emotionally, aesthetically, then it's a matter for you as the allosexual to work through that in your own mind and through your own self to find that self-love, to not put so much of your self-worth in a sexual attraction. Because if you know that your partner is attracted to you other ways and you've communicated that through that worksheet and your partner is now working on complimenting you in other ways, like saying, I love your arms, and I'm so attracted to your mind and the way you think. If you can put together those thoughts and compliment each other more often, then it becomes more of a self-worth aspect. And I do think there are people who I think it can be tricky to navigate the intimacy when it does come to sexual aspects, knowing that your partner might not 100% be in it in the way that you may have thought they were before. And that's certainly something that you have to work through.
Honestly, Skylar, it starts with you yourself.
It does.
It always will start with you yourself.
And so I think that we want to delve, I think is the right word, delve more into the aspects of the worksheet or workbook and go deeper into each subsection for future episodes. I thought it would also be kind of interesting to look at love languages and dispel the idea that your love language has to be fulfilled for you to be happy.
You're almost wanting to take a little bit of a poke at the love languages that everyone talks about.
I think so, because if your love language is words of affirmation, you can't force someone to give you words of affirmation. So then it becomes, well, is your love language the foundation of your relationship?
Maybe you should be giving yourself words of affirmation.
Exactly. Can you give yourself your own love? Should your love language be fulfilled by yourself?
Yes, maybe it should start with you.
Exactly.
And then it's not this huge gaping hole that you're relying on somebody else to be filling in that way.
Yep.
Interesting.
So, I don't know. We'll poke around with some ideas, but we wanted, again, we're beating the unalived horse, but
that is a very un-vegan thing of you to say.
Right?
I just want you to know.
This episode is more about introspection in the sense of finding out why you're with your partner. What would you do if they weren't here tomorrow? Would you regret anything if they weren't? Would you wish you could go back and change something? And if the answer is yes, then guess what? Tomorrow you can do all of those things without them actually having to be dead.
How wonderful is that?
You still have time to...
You get to make a choice.
You get to make an active choice.
In some way or another.
Get over resentments, get over disappointments and issues that you have, and work through them while you still can.
Yeah.
Because
or
tomorrow...
choose not to work through them.
Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And so... Yeah.
I have I want to take a moment to have a little bit of real talk here at the end of the episode. And Skylar's like, what's she doing? Because I didn't tell him I was going to do this. But
I mean, I don't think that she really knew what most of this episode would be about.
No, and honestly, Skylar and I kind of come up with an idea and then we just roll with it.
Yeah.
So here we are. I'm rolling with it. I want to have a real moment, and I think that this would be a good thing.
I feel like we need like a real talk.
Oh gosh. I don't know about that. I think this would be a good thing to touch on in each episode if there is something to say. So my real talk moment, it has to do with calling out interesting moments that have happened in the last week.
Yeah. Like to show that we're human?
Yes, to show that we have things that happen. I want to call out a couple of triggers that I had. I don't know if you'll resonate with them, those listening, but you might. Maybe it will help you. I don't know. Or maybe it will help a partner listening. That too. So the first trigger I had that I can think of is I had chastised Skylar for what I felt was not being caring enough to his cat that he has.
I did not know where this was going.
Yeah. And so I got after him, everybody. I got after him. And then after I got after him, set the record straight with him, I said, you just love that I just chastised you, don't you? And he goes, I'm used to it every day, or something like that. Okay. So he made some sort of under the breath comment about being chastised every day.
Which I had told her that I didn't fully listen to the word because I was heading out the door, and my mind said spicy because she is a spicy Aries.
Spicy Aries.
And she's a redhead. And so I, in my mind, was thinking spicy, not chastisey.
Yeah, so it triggered me. And it was so annoying to me because logically, I knew this was not a big deal. I know Skylar doesn't feel like I chastise him every day.
It's every other day.
Yeah, it's every other day. But in my trigger emotional state, I could not handle it. I was like, oh, great. So now you feel like I chastise you every day. And you also have to deal with my asexuality, which he hates when I say he has to deal with me. So we had a moment. We did. He left to go do what he had to do for the cat. And then I went downstairs and cried because I was a little bit of a mess. So that was the first one. And we talked through it. And he said, oh my gosh, I honestly didn't even realize that you said chastised. And, we cleared it up. It was fine. The second trigger that I had is a little bit more important to pay attention to. We were making dinner.
I was making dinner.
Skylar was making dinner.
I was making homemade pasta noodles.
Yes,
from scratch.
Let's set the scene. We were in the kitchen. Skylar was making homemade pasta noodles. I had this sweet thought that came into my head that I wanted to tell Skylar, I hope that you will love me the way you love me always.
And as the noodles were getting to be done, I went to the drawer to go get the colander.
The strainer, yes. And that was the exact moment that I wanted to put my hands on his shoulder and kind of give him a quick little hug and say, I hope you'll always love me the way that you love me right now. And he not only audibly rejected my bid for attention here,
which was silent.
Yes, he said nothing. He also...
Well, you said nothing either.
Well, I think I went, hey, and I went to go put my hands on your shoulder.
But she didn't say, can I give you a hug right now and have this moment?
No, yeah. No. I was expecting him to just stop the strain, okay? And so he not only didn't pause for a minute, but he turned his back to me too. He almost shuffled himself away from me.
I had a mission.
He was on a mission, guys. Those noodles were important.
They were done. They needed to be taken out right now.
So I immediately just felt the biggest sense of I needed this bid for attention really badly. And it was going to be a quick one. It would have been 10 seconds, I think. A very quick hug, a little whisper in the air, the sweet thing that I thought of. And he completely just brushed me off completely. And I knew it bothered me right then and there. And so I said, I don't know, I was standing there kind of bewildered a bit. And I was like, oh no, I'm feeling quite upset right now. I think this is bad. I don't like this. I really needed that. And so I said, we need to talk in the family room. And he's like,
well, you said, I have something funny to tell you.
I didn't say funny.
You did?
I didn't say funny. Did I say funny?
You said funny.
I have something funny to tell you.
And that's why I was like, I need to
Maybe I was trying to downplay it so I didn't freak out.
Yeah.
Maybe I was like, this is so sweet. I have something funny to tell you. I was about to tell you something so sweet, but you freaking rejected me. Ha, 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 ha. I don't know. That's weird that I said funny. So anyway, I say that to him and he rejects me again.
I said, I need to separate these noodles because they're going to stick together.
And so in my head, I'm like, oh, well, that's just freaking sweet, man. These noodles are just so freaking important. So much more important than my 10 seconds. I just need 10 seconds. And I don't think of these sweet little things all the time to say to him. You know what I mean? So it felt like I needed to really say it. So I went outside to the porch and needed to take some breathers. And I was so upset. I was spicy, level 3. And my feelings were hurt too. So I was spicy and crying. And he came out and at first, I don't feel like he validated the situation or was empathetic towards it. And then I explained to him that 10 seconds, that bid for attention for that 10 seconds can make or break someone that's kind of feeling chaotic right now with who they are and trying to regulate themselves. And just giving that quick, simple 10-second hug would have really done so much. So I told him hey, I realize that this is actually a pretty big deal. So if this happens again, know that I'm not asking for a lot of time. I just need a hug, or I just need you to hold my hand for a second. because I'm about to spiral or something. I don't know.
And
it's so unpredictable, you know?
Yeah, and I think I asked if she could just tell me a sign of some sort to like, what is distinguishing like a regular, just quick hug versus like a need to hug you or I'm going to have a breakdown.
Right. And I realized earlier tonight, I happened to have a little bit of a spiral moment and I called it. Did you hear me say I'm spiraling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to voice it. I'm trying to voice all the things. I'm trying to say I'm uncomfortable right now or I'm feeling quite awkward right now. And I think it's helping. I feel completely out of control when these things are happening because I simply don't recognize them in myself and they come out of nowhere. And so then I end up having this vicious cycle of feeling so stupid and like I'm not strong enough. I'm pathetic for even being upset. It's terrible.
She told me to eat her pasta.
Guys, I told him to eat my homemade pasta that he made for me.
And I would have.
I know, because it's so good.
And I burnt the red sauce too.
You did?
Yeah, because I was out there talking to you and it was on like high. I was scraping the pan when I got back in.
I didn't know that. But I mean, that pasta is good, everybody.
It is.
It's really good. So it's just be patient with yourself, okay? Be patient with yourself. Try to see what you can do to call out or to surface so you're not like living in shame in your head, I guess.
Yeah, and we talked about all this in episode 5 with triggers and, emotional landmines. And so it does really take, your partner to be like, I understand that I could have handled this better. I am sorry. I wasn't aware because again, we're around each other 24/7 pretty much. And so we hug all the time throughout the day. And so when she went to like reach for a hug, I didn't know that there was a distinction between like,
you didn't know it was a bid for attention.
I just thought it was going to be a regular hug. And I'm like, well, that can wait because I've got these noodles that need to like get off of the fire right now. But I didn't know that she had a specific thing in mind.
He didn't know it was such a thoughtful choice I was trying to make.
And so that's why I was like, well,
why would he know?
Can we vocalize those in the future to just say, I need 10 seconds.
Ooh, maybe that's good. Maybe it just needs to be that. I need 10 seconds.
And then,
because everyone got 10 seconds, right?
Everyone has a code word, right? Like if you are at a friend's party or a coworker's party or some party and you're like, if I say, it rains a lot in April, then that's our time to go.
Right. I think, honestly, that might be the thing to say. I need 10 seconds.
10 seconds. And then that just means like, this is serious and I need to stop whatever I'm doing. Cause there's
like I need to ground myself. I need this 10 seconds with you.
Unless your toddler is trying to juggle knives, there's not a whole lot of things that can't wait 10 seconds.
Yes. Okay. Well, there it is, babe.
And then if you know that it's 10 seconds, but something does need to stop, you can say, I need 2 seconds to stop this thing so that you can have your 10 seconds.
Yeah. You can clarify and say, I'm here. Let me stop this water.
Yes.
Yeah. Or you can give the 10 seconds and then say, I need 2 seconds and I'll come right back if you need another 10.
Yep.
There you go. Magic, baby. We got to practice that.
Yeah.
We should see how that works over the next week and we'll report back.
Sounds like a plan.
It does. So that's it. That's it for tonight's episode, today's episode, this morning's episode, whenever you're listening
5
to this.
years from now when you find this podcast.
That is so weird that people could listen to this in 5 years from now.
I mean,
where will we be?
Well,
there's just silence for a second.
I'm here.
My therapist did ask me, why do you always say 5 years? And I was like, I don't know. It seems long enough that some crazy crap could happen. And short enough that it seems reasonable.
Achievable.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I do say 5 years a lot. Anyway, okay, a couple things here. Obviously, please reach out. Let us know what you thought of the episode, what was the most impactful part of it, all the things, of course. Skylar and I are also soon going to be opening up a separate Etsy shop. We already have an Etsy shop because we do make t-shirts and stickers, but we really want to make ones that focus on pride. Yeah. On LGBTQIA pride, on asexuality pride.
Yeah, the queer community as a whole.
Yes. And so we will be doing that soon. So look out for that. And hopefully we can come up with some pretty cool designs for that.
Yeah. And like we said last time, if you go to aloeandace.com, there's also the little buy me a coffee link if you want to donate that way.
Yep. And you can always get the worksheets for free. And I know that there's not a lot on our website yet, but we do plan on continuing to put things on there, free resources. It just takes time to build that up, of course.
Yep.
We appreciate everyone so much. We love this community, and we're so happy to have recorded this episode for you.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk again next time.
See ya.